Hi, welcome to another edition of Soul Search and our series called Meet Me at the Cross. I wonder if in heaven we'll laugh about the things that we conflicted over in this world. On Mother's Day weekend, I've been recalling a story that my mom told me from years ago. When she married my father, she moved into my grandpa's house and he still lived there. This made for a bit of an awkward situation, and they conflicted. It wasn't the only aspect of their relationship, but it was significant. It was a difficult time for both of my parents, and eventually, Grandpa moved into town into an apartment. Things happened, for example, where Grandpa would still assert quite a bit of control in the kitchen. When Mom tried to bake a cake, he would stoke up the wood stove, which is what they had in those days, and the cake would burn. She often said that the willow trees down in the coulee behind our house were watered by her tears when she was a young woman, and that's why they grew so well. Well, I wonder if today, in heaven, they look back at that and laugh at the tension. I know it wasn't the only part of their relationship, but it was significant, and it was a difficult time. I wonder if we could bring those kinds of conflicts to the cross in this life, in this world, and why wait for the next, and have a better perspective on them. Could we laugh at the things that we tend to get angry about? Could we be less humiliated and more humble? And what does this mean and how does it work anyway? Well, we'll acknowledge that living from the cross of Jesus does not make life a cakewalk, whether you use a wood stove or a convection oven. In fact, living from the cross of Jesus in one way makes life even more difficult, but infinitely more effective. It's more difficult because it requires laying down our egos, and that's difficult for any of us. But the cross clears the way for us to grow in love. Here's why this is possible, as the Apostle Paul explained it. Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, died as the one perfect sacrifice for all humanity, for all of our wrongs and sins, including those who revered God and those who had no time for him whatsoever. In fact, Paul wrote of two groups with a long history of hostility toward each other. One group that held strictly to God's law, and another that lived with no regard for God's law at all. But neither approach brought peace with God or with each other. So enter the cross of Jesus Christ. And Paul wrote this. It says, "Together as one body, Christ reconciled both groups to God by means of his death on the cross, and our hostility toward each other was put to death." Reconciled to God, reconciled to each other. That's how God dealt with the hostility between us and himself and each other. He gave his Son to carry the hate to the cross, where the way of humility, which can be extremely tough, opens the door to love. And someday those who have taken the way of the cross, trusting Jesus in this life, will look back and wonder why we hated each other for political views, our opinions about musical preferences, and who should fill what role in leadership, or how hot the oven should be, or you name it. But the door to that peace is open now by trusting in Jesus and what he did on that cross. And so, with that beautiful message of peace from him, we say, Happy Mother's Day.